What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Drums and Drams whiskey review. My name is Cameron, and today I'm starting a brand new series on the channel of Throwback Thursday whiskey reviews. Now, I'm not going to be doing this every Thursday, but the goal of starting a new series like this was to kind of have a place where I could review prior bottlings, prior limited editions, special releases, that kind of thing. Basically bottles that I either missed reviewing in the past or didn't get my hands on until it felt like it was a little bit too late to put a review out for them. I wanted a series where I could kind of put all of those things and have it make sense. And so that's what we're doing with this. In the spirit of checking out some older limited edition bottlings, I have two different batches of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof here, batch A122 and B522. And the reason that this is gonna be the very first Throwback Thursday whiskey review on the channel is because C922 just hit shelves, and that review is gonna be coming out in the next couple of days. But I wanted to get my thoughts out for these two batches before I moved on to C922. So let's just see how this goes, this Throwback Thursday idea. If it sucks, I'll stop doing it. That's totally cool. It is time to get on to some Elijah Craig Barrel Proof here. As we all know, 12-year age statement on these, non-chill filtered. A122 is coming in at 120.8, and B522 is at an even 121. So for all intents and purposes, these are pretty much the same proof, and I'm gonna treat them as such in this review. Gonna nose them, taste them, do a little side-by-side comparison, and let you guys know what I think of these. So let's check out A122 now on the nose. All right, so first thing that I get out of this is just a really strong peanut note, kind of a brown butter as well. And something I've been getting on the last 3, 4, 5 batches of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof has been this distinct, almost burnt note. And in the case of A122, it's coming off kind of like a burnt orange. Yeah, obviously we're talking about a classic Kentucky bourbon, so you're gonna get those classic Kentucky bourbon notes. There is a rich caramel here. There is some oak influence as well, but it's really not the heavy oak that I'm used to getting from Elijah Craig Barrel Proof batches, 2020 and before. This is kind of a cleaner, I would even say more youthful oak profile. It reminds me of some of those like 9 or 10-year-old private barrels that they're putting out at barrel strength these days. Not really hit me on the nose like a 12-year bourbon. It's kind of unfortunate. It feels like, this is maybe not gonna live up to my expectation of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, but we're gonna keep nosing it and see how this thing continues to develop here. I'm gonna call out one thing on here that's really throwing me off, and it's this note that's kind of on the back end or kind of hanging out in the background. It's almost like a chemical note in here. I don't know if it's like latex or some sort of, I don't know, the word solvent comes to mind, I guess, but there's something chemical about A122. And while there are some decent notes in here, some classic notes, this chemical quality in the background is really kind of taking away from the whiskey. So before I taste this thing, I'm gonna go ahead and jump on over to B522 and just see how this thing compares on the nose. Yeah, and it's really a tale of two whiskeys here. B522 is a lot sweeter on the nose. There is a lot of vanilla on here. That was kind of the first thing that jumped out of the glass. A really distinct vanilla bean note that I was not getting on A122. Again, this feels a little more burnt. I guess at this point, having done the comparison side by side, it feels kind of closed off as well there on A122. Yeah, and B522, man, that sweetness is great, but I'm also getting a really nice fruity quality here, like a dark cherry kind of note. And I think some of the best batches of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, not only do they have that dusty quality to them, especially older batches when you get back into like 2018, 2017, they also have a heavy oak profile, which again, A122 is lacking. And then the third thing that really kind of separates a good batch is a distinct fruit note. And this B522 has that cherry note, and it's really, really doing it for me on the nose, I've gotta say. Yeah, overall, I mean, it is so clear to me just on the nose that B522 is more than likely going to be the superior batch between these two, but we have to taste them. Whiskey is not only meant to be nosed, it's meant to be consumed. So let's go ahead and try A122 now and see what we get. Cheers. A122 is definitely sharp on the palate. A really big hit of white pepper spice up front. It just stings the palate. A good bit of ethanol there, even for the 128 proof. Sorry, the 120.8 proof that it is. This thing really has an upfront sting, but right after that initial punch, it falls off in the mid palate. I mean, it completely falls apart. Getting into the finish now, what's lingering at this point is just a ton of that peanut note. First impression on the palate here kind of matches the nose, where it just feels like it's a little bit all over the place. It's not super pleasant. It's not something that I'm like wanting to take a second sip of, but I'm gonna take a second sip now and see if this thing gets any better or if it continues to disappoint here. So the second sip is a little bit better. It sweetens up just a tad. That kind of burnt orange note is coming through. It's not the greatest, you know, but it is there. That chemical thing in the background still hanging out on the palate. It kind of leaves this, I want to say it leaves a film on your mouth, but that sounds disgusting. It leaves some sort of like residue on the palate that is not good. That big punch up front, that flat mid palate, into a finish that, yes, it does last a while. There is a Kentucky hug going on the finish, but the notes that I'm left with on the finish, the peanut shell, that chemical note, not super pleasant for me. So A122 is definitely a miss. Let's go back to B522 now, which again, I said had that really nice fruit quality on the nose, that cherry note, a lot more vanilla, a sweeter profile. And now let's try this on the palate and see what we get. So cheers. Oh yeah. That is so much better. I can't even believe how much better B522 is than A122. That is all cherry all day. It makes me so happy to see that Elijah Craig Barrel Proof is seemingly improving with this batch with B522, which sets up C922 and that review to be kind of important for me, because I want to see a trajectory of Elijah Craig Barrel Proof from this point forward that is on the upward slant. I feel like they've been falling off since 2020, and to see B522 coming through with this fruit note and this really sweet profile, it's very, very exciting. Now, the other thing I want to say about this, I am going to take a second sip, is just that this feels like, even at 121 proof, that it's drinking above that. Like you're getting a really nice flavor punch on the palate. It's hitting you up front, but not with the sharpness and the ethanol that A122 did. It's hitting you with a lot of flavor up front. And that's what I really look for when I'm thinking about, how a bourbon or how a whiskey hits the front of your palate. It's gotta be flavorful and not just, punchy for the sake of being punchy. So let's go in for a second sip now. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. B522 for me is definitely a recommend. I think if you are still seeing these in your market, I know a lot of different places are getting these batches 3 to 6 to 9 months late. If you do see a B522, it's probably the first batch for me that I can recommend if you are a fan of the 2020 batches and earlier. If you haven't had any of those 2020 batches or before, if you're used to the 2021 and the 2022 profile, both of these might be fine for you. You might really enjoy them. We are talking about barrel proof 12-year Heaven Hill bourbon, and at $70, if you can find it at SRP, that's an absolutely great value. But if you are a fan of those earlier batches, B522 is the first one that I can recommend in quite a long time. So I'm very excited about that. I would love to know what you guys think of both of these releases. Let me know in the comment section if you've tried them, what you think, and especially if you've had C922. I would love to know your first impressions. I just picked my bottle up and that review is going to be out in the next couple of days. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and check us out on Patreon, Drums and Drams over there. That's gonna do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for checking it out, and I'll see you next time here on Drums and Drams. Cheers.